customer experience, like response to the customer. But like, to me, it's just sort of, it sounds too passive to me.
Okay. Good input. Thank you, Lynn.
I really like the word power in the purpose, because I think they're very purposeful words. That wasn't seeming intentional, but it also speaks to what we do. I really like the owner credo. I guess my questions are, how does this tie to our current essentials? How do we ensure that those things are not just statements, but how are we gonna measure, monitor, maybe measure performance of our employees? Like, are they doing these things? And I actually don't really like that those the purpose, impact, or goal, because I really like work, respond, turn, like turn means we're gonna change. I actually like the first word, it's a really powerful thing, so.
Okay. Good. And, you know, the piece around like ownership essentials, kind of the intersection of that and the credo. So the work we're gonna do, really the bulk of the middle part of today is around cultural beliefs, I think, with the culture part of the team. And what I anticipate is that that work should begin to shape up maybe what comes through in credo, and it may influence kind of what does or doesn't stick with ownership essentials as well. I really, I'm gonna lead the witness a little bit here. I really don't want to end up with owner credo, ownership essential, cultural belief. That'd be a mess of stuff that we just can't. So it's gotta be something that's impactful, it's simple to understand, and then your question about how do we make it purposeful and kind of tangible and actionable, that is one of the reasons why Culture Partners is engaged, to ensure we can activate and make sure it's a part of every system that we have in the business, is the intention. Do you have a thought on that, Jeremy? Go ahead.
Not on that, I'm just gonna move. I was, after spending 90 days above 9,000 feet, I think it's time to think. And
With less oxygen.
with my yeah, so it's always a better result. But we entered into this as the EC, and one of the things that we said at the beginning is we need to have a vision, something that points us to where we're going. When I see this up here today, I'm less inspired by it, and more because I'm more inspired by the changes that we made in our purpose. And I'm just calling that out, that there's a lot of stuff here, and is there a way that maybe the vision, you know, we've been kind of operating without a vision for some time. Do we simplify it? Do we have enough, is there enough vision in our purpose? You know, just seeing it out there today, refreshed again after taking some time away from it. I don't know if I'm, you know, working as a CSR or something, that vision speaks as good as the purpose does.
I would say a lot of people over the years know when to use what.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff, like when I reference the vision, the purpose, the credo, the formula, like it just starts to, they're all good, but maybe grounding back in like, here's what it's saying, what we talk about.
Yeah, I think less is more. I think less is more, it's always gonna hear.
Sometimes.
Well, there's pieces in that vision, there's pieces in that somewhere else in every case. Right, so we could ground some of those back into the principles and.
It just jumped off the page this morning, more so than anything.
All right, good feedback. Dave?
I guess one thing that I heard comments around it, but it's not directly referenced in here, so I think about, you know, James, you made a comment about trusting Don to make markets. I think the flip side of that is Don trusts you guys to deliver, right? Is operating as one team, right? And I don't know if that's really reflected in here. And I also think about it in terms of our growth strategy a little bit. You bring on an acquisition, and sometimes it can be a, well, us versus them kind of thing, or well, not how they want us to do it this way versus, hey, we're one team, we're all going in the same direction. And it feels like emphasizing that a little bit may have an opportunity for us.
It's interesting, you know, the industry, maybe broader business went through a phase where like the name of the company was the thing, right? That was like the mantra. And so we steer away from it a little bit, but the notion of what you're describing, I like a lot. We talked about trust yesterday, Zach, in the video we were doing. That was Zach's comment about trust and the criticality of trust between elements of the team. what you were saying is, this is kind of one purpose, one mission, kind of one organization driving this. So, good input.
Yeah, I would say, first of all, the do good, you said it a couple times, that it's back in our really, I think that's powerful, and I think you said it right, I mean, we're not gonna sell every stick of everything, but it matters here. The
Yeah.
world is a crazy place, and respect and care should emanate out from us, and I think when it does, because we are that way,
Yeah.
at this place, our place, that's what it's gonna be founded on. So, I think, I'm glad it's back in there. Not this slide, but I don't think the technology in that slide layout, that wasn't working for me at all. It
Yeah.
really said like technology was a lot part. I know technology is a part of it, but it really isn't, that's my layout. Yeah, there's some that's.
I should have noted, I didn't set this up right. From a visual standpoint, don't assume any of this is where it's gonna end up. This is literally, I will tell you, the team that are working on this is iterating like every single night to kind of navigate and kind of keep pace and keep changing. So the visual piece is, we can do anything we need to do there, so good feedback.
And then I think my last one, each essential or each group, the narrative, that's probably not gonna stay with me, is what I was hearing. I know it's working hard to get everything I want, but it's not gonna stay with me. But like I think James, you kinda had almost a little credo in his about connect. And like, if you could shorten that to a little credo of those 6, I think that would stick with me, allow me to lead that, coach that. But I think, and then maybe if you want more, open that up and read that down. But it's,
And those narratives, others can, Tom or Sally jump in and, give comments on this too, but, part of the idea, we built the last strategic plan, we probably lacked some of the depth needed to create like more full understanding. So part of the idea here has been create more full context, more full understanding, so we've got kind of a baseline. And so it may not be everyone, well, no one's gonna memorize that, but as reference and things that we kind of anchor back to, things that we pull out of, was kind of the notion we were working to achieve there is, you're gonna see the things that we're doing, the actions, the initiatives, the things that are moving and shaping those different objectives. But what is kind of the overall kind of feeling we should get with this? Or like for someone in a logistics role, how can we use that to kind of inspire kind of their view of the work they do within this otherwise tactical stuff that we're doing? It's
Yeah.
kind of the notion.
That's how I kind of took it too, is I like the narrative, not that we remember it, but it's a story and a feeling behind it, and maybe a jumping off point for giving a little bit more of the story. So I kind of like those pieces, like this should be more simple, it should be able to kind of spit those off. But the narrative really helped me, especially when people were reading it, I had a different feeling that I had like last.
So, to Steve's point, the direction we're in, the second slide, when we're really trying to, most of the people in this room, you're really close to what we are gonna go do. So there's a little bit of mixed audience there. Tom, Sally, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but to Steve, to your point, what we go out to market with for the final visuals, our intent is for that to be a little more streamlined, with a lot more detail behind the scenes. Even with the narrative, imagine that condensed version up front, and you like a click through, here's the robust narrative essentially.
yeah, I mean, think of all of our employee owners.
Yep.
Not just the leadership group. You might kind of, that's powerful to me, but if we want something to stick, short and quick, or do we think of the whole mass of our employers, that I think is where my thought.
You just spurred a thought for me, then all the others jump in here. The notion that I think sometimes we have leaders on the field or in this office who they get it, they connect with it, and they can carry the message. But if they don't, then sometimes, think about the technology message here. Absent of us kind of building a little bit of what we're trying to get done and how we're doing it, there are probably some folks who would look at that and go, that's bullshit.
Right.
Just don't even worry about that. Just do this, And so how do we get, think about fusion and the opportunity to kind of have a shape and bring people more deeply into the understanding of, not just tactically, but emotionally and just the whole connected kind of view of what this is. Able to go back to a branch and turn around and go, there's some pretty cool stuff going on. In fact, I'm pretty excited about this connected CX thing because this is what we're gonna deliver, and the ability to kind of anchor back into something and go, this is kind of the narrative and what it should look like. And so we have work to do there, but that's kind of the idea, is how do we reinforce a little bit and not just let it be up to 350 leaders and their own interpretation. How to begin to kind of shape and then allow them articulate in their words based on that shaping. Thanks, go ahead.
Yes, so I like to add, for passion, it's a very good summary. As I'm looking at this, though, one thing that I feel like we're missing, when we talk about employee owners, it's encompassing what employee owners do for our customers and how they build the relationships. But, what I think we're missing here is how we are also taking care of our employee owners.
Yeah.
Because if we're not doing that, then none of this happens.
Yep.
So, if there is a statement or some type of visual that encompasses that as well too, I think it kind of closes the loop on how this happens.
Yeah, it's good input. I think our intention was to stick that passion, I think we didn't get it in, I think that was the discussion we had, was in the passion piece, having an element that does exactly what you described. Make sure that comes up, it's good.
You mentioned two things like that. One was employee owner and passion. I think that that's a good add to do that, and then also the growth, you had talked about it being relevant.
Yeah.
That relevance is the reason, and we have to have that kind of highlighted, so that people at every level can speak to why is it important that we grow, because that question comes up quite a bit, why do we have to do this?
Yep, it's good. Lori and then
I like the work purpose, the passion piece, and then the unleashed ownership potential, and kind of removing the piece of achieve life goals, right, like that. For me, it resonated on, as an employee owner, what do I bring to make the company better? How do I serve the company, and not necessarily how, but there's a lot of uncomfortable conversations about, well, what is worst case gonna do for me? So I actually like those pieces, I don't know if that was intentional with removing that specific phrase, but I'm like,
And it was really, there's some intention in that, and it's an interesting kind of observation, because I think we got to a place with the previous objective where it almost became, to me, like, very indexed on, here's what the company's gonna do for you, which is kind of what you're describing, as opposed to, again, how do we, like, interconnectedly, we do great things for the organization, the customers, in return, we get these rewards, and together, that's what magic happens, so there's some intention with how we kind of build that. So good observation, good feedback. Cedric was first, and then I'll forward Jeff.
Yeah, just a comment, obviously on my laptop in front of me, but really trying to think about what we saw on here in comparison to our previous strategic plan. And, to me, the previous strategic plan really listed out a lot of things that we're just gonna do.
Yeah.
Right, we're gonna do this within each category. To me, this one feels much more empowering, and it's, hey, positions are leaders out of the organization, are gonna make decisions to shape, right? We continue with the vision and strategy that this will become, so really good from my perspective there. Just a personal note, under excellence, I am not a fan of the term clear choice, I like obvious choice. I think it's much more, it's one of my favorite books, but,
Okay, good. Obvious, so clear was the comment that you made. Excellent was the last piece. Well, that's
Clear. I'm looking at how this kind of parallels to our culture, and I look at it saying, culture has to have shared values and beliefs and ethics, and everybody has to kind of subscribe to that. Do we think that we're there yet, and that we define those expectations of ethics and commitment levels that require us to execute something like this?
let's hold your energy and your thought for the next session, because I think we're gonna get into, you're gonna get into,
Well, I think of the word behavior,
yes.
and as someone who didn't behave as a child. But behavior's gonna drive results in our company, and are we confident that we all exhibit a similar characteristic of behavior that are gonna enable us to get to those results?
I don't think we're there yet, and that is the work with Tina, am I right, guys?
It is, yeah.
Okay, that's the work, no,
Oh,
it's
you're
good.
ahead of myself.
That's good, you're a visionary, a visionary.
Oh, I see.
The other comment, quick, just centric on your comment, we will have, like it looks today, some of the built out pieces, but we are trying to build more around to create a little more of a vision and kind of a narrative of where we're going. So, good observation. Aaron?
My view's a little bit narrow with like M&A, but recent experience with adjacencies, looking at companies, is there a clear fit with our company? What do we wanna be to our customers? And I've used some of our ownership essentials, our big four objectives and those sort of things to say like, is this acquisition in line with where we wanna go? I still think there's a little bit of, uncertainty or not clear enough of what we wanna be to our customers. Like I see supply, that's our core competency. I agree with that there, but, I don't know, I would, especially like the vision piece of it, like, we set the standard, okay, but like, is it more transformative than that? Like, is there a bigger idea to where we wanna go? To be able to serve our customers, and what does the future look like on that side for a distributor when we're going to set that standard? Is it very different than what we are today? Or is it, again, time will tell, we need to be, being intentional, we need to be thinking about those things. And I also think like when you look at the growth piece of it, I agree we wanna be relevant, but should the growth piece be bigger than how we're describing it today? It's more extreme.
So there's a couple things in there, makes me want to flip slides, which I will do in a moment. I think your question gets into some of the objectives we have, I think.
Yeah.
And I want to share a little context there. The other comment we did talk about was, probably the most talked about key result in the current plan is being number 4. That's the one. And I was sharing with the culture partner team, like, when we declared that, like, we went from one week people talking about 4 to 5% growth plans to the next week people talking about something wildly different. And so it began to set kind of a different tone of expectation. We don't have that probably emanating out of this yet, but we have talked about the importance of kind of a high mark for what we're gonna go after from the growth standpoint, the aspiration. So we do need to kind of pull that out as we get, I think, at some of the objective work that we have in here. I think this will come up, I think. But your other comment, Aaron, around like what I hear in your comment, what I take away, probably a piece of it is that what is the vision for how the company is going to like work in 5 years, and in turn, how does it serve the customers? And so ideally, if we do this work right, we create a vision for the future of the organization through these objectives. Like these 6 together should create a vision that begins to come together where someone goes, okay, national and local, I get it. I know what that means, I know what we're trying to go with that. When I think about connected CX, I can envision a future that doesn't exist today with how we're gonna serve customers kind of in this space. Here's what it's gonna look like. I don't know if we've got it yet, but that's ideally, when we get to Fusion, that's my expectation, we will be able to essentially articulate a vision for the future with a more dialed in kind of version of each of these, kind of the idea. And then collectively, they become kind of this view of how we're gonna operate, what it's gonna look like. Hopefully I connect with what you were saying, but maybe not.
Well, the piece, it falls a little bit in the market makers piece of how do we define that, what do we want to
Be more
how do we
specific.
serve our customers, it's, we're talking about like we're offering.
Yeah.
Values is what, we're offering value, we're creating value, but like what is that value gonna
so this
There's
is
no
no,
definition around that.
yeah, it's a good call out, and I think we've got work to do in the core market, big bets, the market adjacencies. I would say historically, we're all over the place. We're kind of many things to a lot of people. And the notion has been, how do we dial in, what that looks like? Where do we hunker down and make investments to really fuel growth going forward? In market adjacencies, it shouldn't be, we're interested in whatever comes our way that can fit our customers. It should be, it's integrated supply, that's the thing we're going after. Here's exactly why, how we're gonna go approach building out an integrated supply model across the business, if that's what it is. Ideally, these get much more focused, much more narrow. I will tell you, I think we have work to do on the services piece in shaping kind of the view of what that future looks like. There's a lot of work going on. We even talked recently about kind of how we organize it and the platform on which we do it, kind of organizationally at a high level. I think there's more work to do there. I think that'll be important work to get done as we kind of roll this out. What does it really look like from the services standpoint? What are we going to focus on and intend to deliver as part of this?
Maybe I have a few comments on this one too. And I know it's a work in progress, but like, let me just air my grievances and then we can back into it. But I think when you look at the kind of detail behind each of them, the write-up, I can't remember the word you used. I mean, to me, I look at like the sub-bullets and it does not pop at all like what's
Yeah.
different. Do you know what I mean? Like, what will make it different for us? I think the BD statements don't really do anything for me. It feels almost a little bit to Jeff's point of, it's so subject to opinion. I think that could really mean something different for a lot of people. I struggle with the words here, not that like hearing you guys talk through it made sense, I just don't see it looking at it, I guess.
I don't think we do either. I think to be fair, and you must be a Festivus fan, by the way. Aaron and Rita, for all you Seinfeld fans, Festivus for the rest of us.
What's the best of the season? Well, I'm glad you brought that up because the words below, they didn't connect. I think having titles that connect is probably more important. And I will air grievance on one title. The national word, because we even said we don't want it national. So we gotta think about, what is that messaging? As to how do we get this across where we have scale and we have, this geographic presence that's relevant. But we keep that local relationship. That relationship is more important than anything else. So even putting relationship or local firms with scale or something else behind it might be something that.
And Shane, can I ask a question about what you just said, Karen? So you said we don't wanna be national. Is there a connotation or something behind that?
Yeah, I think in the industry, the bigs are called nationals. People call them nationals. Like, the connotation isn't positive.
It's derogatory. We want the
It's
scope.
a little more derogatory. We want the scale and the scope.
There's a qualitative inference when you call someone that job. Correct.
Good question, thank you.
Yeah, Michelle kind of hit on it, I was gonna talk about four people, there's one that stuck out to me, when the confidence makers, I like that. Be dependable, to me, confidence builds trust, that might, you guys talk about trust, be dependable doesn't match the others, in my opinion, not strong enough. Zach, you mentioned trust a lot, that would be a mistake, that is there, just my opinion.
Good.
I'm gonna own those words below.
We identified
And it's writing, so we're not.
My approach to the words below, I actually put them on the top, and I said, if we did those, let's go to the first one, big and local, or national and local. And I said, if we did those things, what would a customer say? And they'd say, nobody else does this, border states as you do. And I like that. And I looked at the next bucket, and I said, if we really got order management, and gate management, and people knew where their stuff was, I thought about Amazon and my world, it's indispensable. I'm 2 clicks away from something.
Market makers, I actually had be, irresistible. That if our customer service was at a level that people would just be attracted to us. That's what a customer is. And dependable and devoted to a cause, and I think I had some, what was the right one?
Attractive.
Be attractive. Be attractive. We talk about attractive. That's where those words came from. It would be more of a, from a customer perspective.
Tom, I think they were helpful. I don't think they'll survive, but. I think they were helpful to the discussion.
Absolutely.
Was the point.
Yeah.
Is what
I think what I was getting at is they will go away, but it was part of the process, and now that we
Yeah.
have two titles up there, people are like, what do we do?
There's a little bit of sausage making going on here, you're seeing the sausage being made, and so you're seeing a little bit of the thought process kind of come out.
Yeah, that's my view.
Sorry for saying we didn't.
Oh, trust me, we already had the moment, where we walked in, can I share this?
Yeah.
Where we actually had these words at the very top.
Yeah.
And that's how we started the meeting, the update that day, and I was saying right next to Tom, he said, well, these are the words I think are really, they kind of describe this, and this could be the heading, and what do you think? I went, I don't like it at all. No, those are really short conversations.
Yeah, I said if I agreed with you, we'd both be wrong, but
That's good.
That's good.
That's right.
We treated technology a certain way. I understand why we did technology as a binder, or it's glue, or it's fabric almost. Yeah, glue. Unless you're gluing. Operating model to me is kind of a similar, I don't know, takes on a similar dimension to me, because it's pervasive, it's kind of woven through everything, culture. I'm not dispelling use of the word culture, but it's almost a wrapper for everything. Technology is kind of a binder, and operating model, culture to me seems like it's a wrapper. But we talked about that in my.
Like, do you need technology on the screen, or is it just expectation that it comes behind everything?
I think we want to talk about it for sure, because, you know, if we articulate a narrative, I was asking JD for feedback, I know at the break, give me critique on what I'm communicating on this. If we simply talk about the narrative of where technology is going, I think there's too many people who are gonna look at it and go, just gonna be dismissive of it. And just say, yeah, same story, different day. Like, yeah, I think we need to, and what we talked about was, like, there's internal things that we know were intentional, that we're driving, that are beginning to create momentum within technology and partnership with the business, but the outcomes have to follow. The outcome is the proof, right? The outcome is when we begin to go, okay, yeah, those things you said you're doing are creating that result. I can now see that future differently. We're gonna talk about that and just be open about it. Otherwise, it becomes like an elephant in the room where people go up the hallway and go, I can't believe that bullshit. I mean, they're not gonna do that. There's no way we're gonna get that done. We're gonna be in the same place we are right now in 4 years. So that's kind of my view.
I would say in addition to that, Jason, when EC talked about it, we did have that exact conversation, this is just an expectation. And we stepped back and said, just in the environment, in the world that we're in today, if you don't talk about technology, we have a risk that our people go, are they reading the newspaper? I mean, there is all this technology movement and transformation, and they just given us a strategy that said, oh yeah, technology is just expected with everything. That's one of the reasons that we called it out.
Well, maybe it's powered by technology or something to like draw it off the page, otherwise it feels like it's just there, right? And I get the point that we're not there today, but then put something behind it to know that that's going to be empowered or transformation.
I would kind of second what Aaron, and we're
You can argue whether we got the results, but I think we need to continue in that trend, because that's how we're gonna succeed. Succeed through the enablement of technology. If we don't embrace it, we're gonna fall down.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the next step, like, this is the what, the where we wanna go, the how is where technology lives. That's what's going to enable, or how we're gonna get to some of these results, is the way I see it. It's like the next step down the road, yeah.
Hey, James, maybe I can tell them that. Jim?
Yeah, I don't want to delay any point, but, you know, the technology piece, we did have this today. We talked about not improving. I mean, you can't watch a news program, you can't read anything, listen to a quarterly report or read a quarterly report that technology is at the top of the list about, because over the next 5 years, technology is gonna make or break. And so, we felt like, and I think the other element is, we also have to move the employee owners to be more embracing of technology and be willing to kind of challenge their own norms. And so how do you put that front and center? Because if we don't do that, you know, if people continue to do the work the way they do it, at some point, it becomes, I think, irrelevant. So it's this weird balance. We don't want to make it the center of the universe, but we do need to include it, and it's got to be highlighted in a way that people go, okay, yeah, they're talking about AI and all of those things, because, I mean, that is, you go to any conference, 80% of what they're gonna talk about is what, you know, the impact of AI. Now, you know, there could be a discussion about the reality of that, and what's really gonna, day in and out of the bond, but, so that, I think that was a little bit of a challenge.
Megan?
I'm gonna shift gears on that for, I have a couple comments on the connected CX, and I forget, in the narrative, well, it's not narrative. In the narrative, I think there was language around from the first call to the final delivery. In my mind, that makes the customer journey very linear, there's a start and a stop. It's not, it doesn't, so I'd like it to see more before the first call. I think we're very focused, and not to know it's all on the order piece here, order side, but what about the sales side, marketing, prospecting? Tony, you and I had these conversations. How can we make that narrative before the first call? You know, we have referrals, we have testimonies, we have, you know, all kinds of things that happen after. You know, it's a cycle, right? I don't have the exact words, but I think we also need to think about the sales tools that we have in here. Tony, we talked a lot about just how we connect and break down the silos across the functions, because it's the customer journey, right? Because they don't think of it as the first order. They're searching way before, you know. So, just challenge us to be a little bit broader when we talk about the customer experience.
So the alliance piece under market metrics, I neglected to say, it really is customer journey. It really is, like if you envision a value, how do you climb a value ladder with the customer, right? How do you promote, inform, solicit the customer to kind of join in go on a journey with you where you're both you're in a position they are to receive more value, we are to provide more value. You know, I talk specifically about spreading that lines, but I think customer journey, and then there's something to what you said about connected CX that's very close, maybe to that.
It's an interesting discussion because we're going to, when we think about, like, you know, standing up and trying to articulate this vision for kind of where we're going, what you're describing is right. You know, some of this connected CX is, if you describe this, connected CX is this, you know, it's a smaller kind of scope within kind of this bigger journey you just described. But this is also stuff that we have just been, like, we have fallen on our face so often. So often. How do we prioritize, how we communicate? So it's good feedback how we think about this, because some of this also needs to be how are we going to show up and with what level of investment behind this to make sure we can deliver this thing that really doesn't exist yet in our industry. Which seems crazy to me, but it doesn't exist yet.
I think we need to prioritize based on customer need, not on what's easiest, what's quickest,
mentioned turn this into outcomes. I'm trying to understand the vision of, what does this look like for our employee owners? Because I get what data management strategy means, but how are we gonna turn this into relatable, data we're trying to use as a customer for people? I just maybe trying to understand in mind, how you're thinking about it.
Yeah, we're trying to get to kind of outcome-based view, you know, the title and how we kind of organize and describe. And I think admittedly, some of this is initiative and action, you know, that begins to kind of fall within.
Yeah.
So we've talked about outcome-based with it. I don't know that we're there with all the wording, but that's the intention.
Tony, you could almost like envision these as outcomes with key results and action plans
Yep.
and stuff. These 6 things are the outcome.
That's the one thing I would just mention is I looked at this through different lenses, M&A, customer, current employee owner, as either onboarding employee owner or current employee owner. I was looking for what's that shiny object, that one thing that I can grab onto. It's kind of the foundation of how I show up and operate every day. It felt a little overwhelming trying to figure out what that was, so maybe the purpose, the credo I really like, it's a good starting point, but I think for an employee owner perspective, driving behavior and strengthening our culture, what's the one thing that we could provide them that they can just attach to and they could really grab onto? I felt like it was really hard to find that one thing in all of this, so outside of that, everything was felt good.
I comment that quick, Lindsay, then I'll take your feedback real quick. So one of the things that we're gonna talk about with culture partners is something called the results equation. And is it the one pager? Is it the one page view?
Yeah.
So, the notion that, like, whatever we have here, like, is there going to be a, like, fiscal year kind of focus view of that? It kind of boils down to say, this is the broad plan, and here's what it looks like in kind of the focus this year, along with key results, the cultural beliefs that are kind of driving those key results. They've got a mechanism they use very uncomfortably with me to try to get us down to just, you know, a smaller number of things. But I think it's to your point, how do you focus and kind of, you know, make sure someone can kind of connect with it more simply. So it's good. It's good input. Lindsay, I think you cut you off. Go ahead.
I was just gonna echo those pieces. My notes were from that lens of the employee owner piece too, how are they gonna absorb this? And where it said who we are, I got thinking, who is the audience for that slide? Because it felt very, I wrote rough and tough because I didn't have another phrase. But is there a way to add warmth? Is there a way to add those behaviors behind them into those stories? Because if I'm reading those, it just, the spark and the warmth and the people side, I wasn't necessarily feeling it. I was excited about the word, but at the same time, my personal core values align with why I work here. Not the actions or the duties, I can do that anywhere, but I wanna feel something from those statements.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good feedback.
And we're over time. Here's our track.
I'm trying, he's caught now,
I can tell James,
He gets that
I
choice.
can tell James what it's good.
No, go ahead.
So I was thinking about, like, with market makers, it's, you know, doing new things, doing things differently to create those markets. And when I look at confidence makers, I think it's very important that we do the basics very, very well, and have discipline. But I was also looking for, like, to connect market makers to confidence makers. How do we roll out things with excellence quickly? And having that in there somehow, of, like, connecting those two, because we are gonna be doing a lot of new things to make markets, and let's make sure that we're doing those with excellence as well, and being able to do that in an expedited fashion.
Good.
Thanks, guys.
Can I add one last thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
So one thing, you know, just to give a little bit of a precursor when it comes to the narratives. The narratives are almost imagined as speaking points. I think Jason said thinking about people and how the story is told over time. In fact, I think I even said it yesterday, are we actually showing the narrative?
because when writing and preparing it, it was really to help guide, you know, the ECs as they convey this story. How do we make these words in this list come to life? And how do we build that connection where people feel energized by it? I'm sure each of you noticed the different energy you felt when Colleen had it read versus you reading it independently. And that's something that will be conveyed as you go in and see like the next generation of what this does and how we bring it to life. But there's some of you who are incredibly good at conveying these stories. But imagine you're a manager at a branch and you're trying to talk about this. Unless it was brought to you with the right energy, at least they can read this and read it to their employees and they'll feel a certain energy that comes about it. So it shouldn't be that is something that we're trying to keep into the shortest piece. It was actually, we need to dig in a little deeper and tell that story and make sure that we're capturing what it is each of you are trying to achieve by going through the we believe, therefore process and where we are with the next level of strategy.
Good feedback, thank you for sharing. Really good, really good. It's the time this morning to work through this, give us a chance to kind of share and pressure test a little bit, so feedback is excellent. Helps us understand where to tighten up, where to make some adjustments, so really appreciate the dialogue and thoughtfulness in what all of you shared for feedback, really good.
Jason, can they provide additional feedback?
No, this is it. We're done, we didn't share that. I don't want to hear about it, so, yes, thank you. If you have more feedback, which I'm sure many of you do, please do share it. For myself, whether it's, you know, Tom, Sally, Jesse, okay, go through Jesse, share your feedback with Jesse. But also, if you have feedback, we're gonna be together for the next day here, day and a half. If you wanna grab any one of the EC members and just say, hey, this didn't feel right, or I felt like this, or whatever it is, just, yes, share, let's talk about it. The input is really, really important, even outside of this session. It's still important, so. Excellent, okay, I think we're ready to pivot to culture partners. Let's take a moment. Let's come back at 10:50. Just please come back on time, 10:50. Just take a moment here. We'll let them get to kind of transition, get set up. When we come back, we'll have the culture partner team working on the next piece of how we think about cultural values. Thank you.